Mr. Craig, there are going to be 3 videos today because I've been a little bit crazy turning things off and on. All right. Okay. Here's what we need to do in a problem like this. There's things outside of the parenthesis and things inside the parenthesis. This is number 8a. Absolute value of x plus 16 equals 32. Write that down on your paper so we have more space. Before we can look at our positive case, negative case, we need to get the absolute value by itself. Brody, are you drinking my water? Sorry, I left it there. You guys are freshmen, they all like, what? What is he really drinking her water? No. Here we go. So we got an absolute value, but it's with something. We need to get rid of the numbers that are with it. If I have plus 16 and I don't want that positive 16 anymore, how can I get rid of it? Minus 16 minus 16. Absolute value of x is left on this side, and 32 minus 16 is another 16. Now this problem looks like some of the ones we've done before. Okay? If absolute value of x equals 16, there are 2 answers. One of them 16. What's the other one? Negative 16. Okay? With us so far, B. 23 equals absolute value of x minus 8 plus 6. So I have some expression inside the absolute value, some expression outside the absolute value. I need to get the absolute value by itself. Again, the absolute value has something added to it. I don't want that there. I need to get the absolute value by itself before I can think about this positive and negative option. How do I get rid of a 6? Minus a 6 from this side of the equal sign and the other side of the equal sign. Not from the inside of the absolute value. From one side and the other. I want this to stay like it is. I just don't want the things that are next to it anymore. 23 minus 6 is 17. Thank you. Now, in the last case, I only had an x, so that was easy. Positive 16, negative 16. Now we need to do the more complicated situation of looking at the positive and negative options. Here's the positive option, 17 equals x minus 8. For the positive option, we just get rid of the absolute values. Here's the negative options, 17 equals negative 1, getting too far over, parenthesis, x minus 8. Notice we did not split into 2 problems until the absolute value was by itself. So we had a little math to do up here beforehand before we could go ahead and say, here's the plus version, here's the negative version. Oh, so much fun, yes? All right, we're not done yet. X minus 8. In order to get x by itself, I need to add an 8. X equals 25. This one's a little harder. Guillermo, what's my first step?
This
Should we believe him? Okay, distribute. Times by a minus, times by a minus. Distribute means if you have something in front of the parenthesis, you got to multiply it through every term. 17 equals negative 1x. What happens when you go negative 1 times negative 8? Thank you. Positive 8. Now, I want to keep the x here and move the 8. Myra, how do I get rid of that 8? Goodbye 8. Goodbye 8 from the other side of the equals. Minus 1x equals 17 plus a negative 8, or 17 minus 8 is 9. Are we done? No. Kenya, last step. What's the last step right here?
Divide by negative 1.
Thank you. Divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. X equals negative 9. Oh, does that look like fun? Aha. Okay. C. 3. Absolute value of x minus 2 equals 12. Write C on your paper. Again, we have a little math to do on these more complicated ones before we split it into two new problems. The first thing we got to do is say, hey, there's a 3 outside my absolute value. This time, though, the last two problems, there was a number added to it. What does it mean if a number is sitting right next to something? Is that addition? Multiplication. So when you have a number sitting right next to something, it's just like this. It's just like 3a. If I have a 3 in front of a variable, that's 3 times a. This is 3 times the absolute value. And how do I reverse multiplication? Divide. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. You didn't say the right thing? We made it the right thing. There we go. Okay, in order to, because that wasn't 3 plus the absolute value, it was 3 right next to it, it's multiply, which you undo by dividing. So divide by 3 here, just on the outside, but also on the other side of the equal sign. Inside stays the same, but now we have 12 divided by 3, which is 4. Now that I have it down to an absolute value and something on the other side, Oscar, I have two cases. The first one is easy to set up. What will the positive case look like? No, that's the second case. You want to do the second case? No, you got it, you got it. Here we go. Negative 1. What do I do with that negative 1? But I got to write the rest of the problem. So what do I write, Oscar? Good job. All right. So we're just being specific. Okay, so that's kind of the harder version. There's an easier version. Chris V, what's the easier version? That's the negative side. What's the positive side look like? Okay, the negative one version has a negative 1 in front. Do I need a negative 1 for the positive version? No. It's actually a positive 1 in front if we wanted to look at it like, here's the positive 1, here's the negative 1. But the positive 1, what happens when you multiply 1 times anything? It's just itself. So when I do the positive version, I just take what's there, x minus 2, and bring it down. Guillermo, I've got an x minus 2 equals 4. How do I get x by itself?
Minus 2.
Try again. It's
Add
already
2.
add 2. Good job. X equals 6. That's one answer. Brody, what do I do with that minus?
You gotta multiply.
Multiply it here and multiply it here. So minus 1 times x, that's easy. How about this? Minus 1 times minus 2.
2.
Good job. Positive 2. A negative times a negative cancels out. Martine, next step. What am I? You're right. What am I going to minus? Try again. Minus the 2. You leave the x alone until last. Okay.
If I...
You gotta go fast. There's 9 minutes. Speed walk. There we go. Okay. Minus 1x equals 4 minus 2 is 2. Who can finish us? Jerry. Divide by negative 1. X equals negative 2. Alright. Oh man, I don't know if I've got D in me today. And we have another huge packet of more of this stuff.
Yay!
I think though that this might be a good time for working on the homework packet. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Pull out that homework packet, please. Books can go away. Homework packet out. Did somebody borrow a calculator? Okay, I'm walking around. Questions on the homework packet.